Everybody there?
No.
Who is?
Mariel, Ashton, Christian, and Evan Young.
Okay. Hello. Hope you're doing well today. Let me get our notes up. I just did something weird to my stuff. I will fix it. Nope, it's not that one. You know, as the instructor, it would probably be good if I knew what chapter we were on. Just saying. Oh, good. I found it. Anybody else come in yet?
Alyssa, Bria, Bradley, Cameron, and Destiny.
Okay. Good. Then we'll get started. Let me go ahead and turn this off, lovely as it is. Okay, so hello everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to COM 171 for Teal College. I'm Peg Watts, as you know, your professor. And John, you know what to do if people wander in that don't belong.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Did Alex get here yet?
No.
No, not yet? Okay. Anyway, so gonna go ahead and take attendance here and then get to questions maybe you have about the final. So let me go ahead and open attendance for today. And give me a minute here, give me a second, and once we do that, then I'll have you guys shout out that you're here. I don't know if you all noticed, but I've caught up on a lot of grading. Just, I don't usually get behind like that. But having to teach online, like classes online involve a lot more interactive stuff, and the interactive stuff has to be assessed too, right? It's not fair, for instance, for me to ask you to do a discussion post about something and then not assess it and give you credit for it, because that's the difference. That's online learning. So there's more work involved. I'm complaining, but there's more work involved. And then the other part of it is it's disorienting right now, right? And what I've been through with my family and what you guys I'm sure are going through with yours and internet access and yada yada. So thanks for understanding, and for those of you who have done back assignments, I think I've caught up with those as well. If you see that I've missed something of yours I'm unaware of, I skipped it over maybe, it could happen. I'm wrong sometimes. Shh, don't tell John, because I want him to think I'm never wrong, but everybody else, you should know sometimes I'm wrong. All right, let's go ahead and take attendance. Who is here? Say me.
Mariel.
Hey, Mariel.
Ashton.
Hello, Ashton.
Christian.
Hey, Christian.
Evan Young.
Hello, Evan.
Alyssa.
Hi, Alyssa.
Bria.
Hi, Bria.
Bradley.
Hi, Bradley.
Cameron.
Hi, Cameron.
Destiny.
Hi, Destiny.
Chima.
Hi, Chima.
Garrett.
And Garrett. Okay, so if you haven't gotten me your outline yet, guess what? You're late. Better get it moved on, like, it's 2 days late. So get it to me by email if you're having trouble submitting it for some reason. If you do submit it, please let me know through email that you did so I can check it and give you credit for it. You will lose some points for lateness, but unless you've talked to me about an extension for some reason, something in your family, internet access, unless you've communicated that with me, I'm going to be taking points off for lateness. But a lower grade than 100, like an 80 or an 85 or a 90, is certainly better than a 0, right? So, oh, I gotta turn that light off behind me. All right, does anybody have questions about the outline or your PSA project? I'm going to be sending you guys a link to Dropbox. I don't know, maybe not send it, but maybe what I'll do is I will edit the assignment link in Moodle for where you're supposed to be submitting your video PSA to include a link to Dropbox. So instead of submitting it through Moodle, through its process, because it's funky. I mean, we've had problems. You guys have been having to send me your outlines through email because sometimes Moodle is weird just about a Word document or something. So I just don't want to take the chance that that might happen with a bigger file, like a video file. So I'm just gonna submit a Dropbox link in that assignment, and you guys will submit it to your Dropbox. To that link, there'll be a folder for COM 171, so you open that folder and then you just submit it to there. It's not hard to do. Does anybody have any questions about how to use Dropbox? It's easy to get signed up with them. It takes 2 minutes and it's free. So there's a pay version too, but you don't need that. Does anyone have problems with Dropbox? Okay, well, if you do, you can let me know and we'll work something else out because, I like to do that. All right, going through the attendance, just making sure I have everybody. Alex is not present yet?
No.
Malik?
No.
Muriel's here, Alyssa's here, Destiny's here, Ashton's here, Bria's here. Is Kayla here?
No.
Bradley is, Chima is, Garrett is. Damien, is Damien here?
No.
How about Nick S?
No.
Alright. Okay, well, I will submit attendance and then we'll get started on the rest of this. So what we're going to do, what the plan for the rest of all of this is, that we have a lecture today, we have a lecture on we were supposed to have a lecture on Monday. But what I've decided is that I'm going to give you guys this coming Monday to finish up your PSA assignment. I would do that if you were doing a presentation for face-to-face class, right? I always give you guys like class, the date that's right before the presentation to tie up loose ends with, group members if it's a group project, or to finesse things if it's your own project, give you back that class time. So I'm gonna do that again for Monday, so we won't meet Monday. Don't look on Twitch because there won't be none. And instead we'll meet Wednesday and Friday next week, and you guys, I'll be presenting your video public service announcements. So any questions about that? Okay, well, good. I hope that means you all understand. And not just that you don't feel like posting. But alright, so outlines that have been submitted are graded. If you have not submitted your outline, please do so. Alright, so we've been talking about social media and mediated communication and the technology that's all involved in like what we're doing right now, but what you guys do in your everyday lives. And some of the things that we talked about, it's a more complicated process when you add a platform like this for human communication because, you know, even 10 years ago wasn't really prominent or easy to do. There were webcams and there was some video chat stuff that was good, but it was awkward and clunky and the feed was bad, and so it wasn't really prominent until recently. And you know, a lot of more animation and other types of media files that are able to be presented through the internet on a computer or a digital device. You know, that's in media communication, what we call cross-platforming, right? You've got, or convergence, especially when you talk about your cell phone and all of the things that you could do with that one device, that one thing that you hold in your hand, like make your video and, you know, watch a YouTube video, access your music through a streaming service, keep in touch with social media. That's convergence, and when other mediums start to use a specific platform to present their media through, that's cross-platforming. And for television, you know, when, you know, let's say a book becomes a TV movie, it's easier to translate that message on television because video gives you so much more nuance, right? And without the media bells and whistles, the multimedia bells and whistles that the internet is now capable of, this was a very flat, one-dimensional form of communication. And so it presented its own problems because you couldn't really understand things like tone of voice or facial expression or those kinds of things. And it was, in the beginning, an awkward way to communicate with each other because of that. And so things started to be developed like emojis or, you know, when we would do chat back in the late 1990s, we did things with asterisks and colons and parentheses to make little emojis of our own because they hadn't been developed yet, and that's why emojis started to become developed. So, yeah. You have to do those things to qualify your message, right? To add the texture and the layer to it that it needs so that your message is taken the right way. Anyway, it's a good thing. I mean, you can't say it isn't. And it's also a bad thing because of how it can be used. So remember, we talked about that this technology is neither good nor bad. It's neutral, but it is impactful. It does have weight. It does change things. Look at elections. Look at activist issues. Look at things that trend with hashtags, right? Definitely changes popular opinion, or at least causes people to think about a thing that they might not have thought to think about before. Anyway, there is so much more positive stuff about it, but some of the deficits, and we'll just go over this again, is loneliness. And, you know, that doesn't just come from social isolation, which is another thing on the list here. It also comes from seeing other people in social media happy in their life, not motivated to do anything. They're showing themselves out on the lake or at the beach or, you know, at an amusement park, out to dinner, checking in places, right? So you start to feel like you're not having that life. Like, what am I doing wrong? How come everybody else is out having a party and a good time and they seem to have so many friends? And then we even do things with social media, like we check, how many friends our friends have and sort of compare ourselves to them in that. Maybe a face that you have about yourself that's a misperception. So, loneliness is definitely a problem, and addiction, we talked about that. That can happen through gaming, it could happen through pornography, it could happen just addiction to social media. And again, how many of your friends or even you check, how many times a day do you check your Twitter feed or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is that you guys are using, WhatsApp, I don't know anymore. And in the end too, with all of these other like psychosocial emotional problems, social like invasion of privacy, how cookies are collected from your computer, and how you could maybe, like I know, I go to eBay to look for something, then I flip over to Facebook, I could close my browser out, open it back up again, go to Facebook, and I'm seeing ads for the thing that I was looking for on eBay. It's a form of temptation and encouragement to buy, right? It's pushing consumerism. It's like, oh, you left our site. Don't you really want that thing? Come on, you really want that thing. Look, we have that thing in other colors too. And you think that thing is too expensive at that price? This place has that thing much more reasonably. So, invasion of privacy, we sort of make a trade-off with that when we go to websites and services that collect cookies, and they make a statement about how they collect cookies and you have to agree with it. It wasn't always like that. That's a fairly new development over the last 5 or so years, that more and more companies are being forced by popular demand and possible oversight by the government, threats to that they're starting to make the public more aware of what your cookies are doing and how much of your information is being shared with other businesses or, services. So, invasion of privacy, hang with your privacy. So, those are just some of the unpleasantries. And then, the last place we left off was just sort of talking about how this is the nature of the internet. For example, it's overwhelming, but how we use this technology is what determines its value to the world. You know what's overwhelming though, seriously? The amount of choices of media that we all have available to us now, from podcast to radio broadcast to sound recording, books, magazines, newspapers, still in circulation and people still engage with, right? Television, and not different streaming service, different antenna services, so many different options to be able to get media. And then a lot of it you get to carry around in your pocket. And so when you get a chance to take media literacy, this is why I say it really is an important topic to learn more about and be a better consumer, because that's a lot of time that you're engaged with people or entities that are trying to persuade you about something. And you should, you pay for it, not just monetarily too, right? You pay for it with your privacy, you pay for it with other parts of your life. So you should definitely learn more about how to be a better consumer of media. So, digital natives, people born during or after the 1960s and have never lived in a world without the internet. Right. Everybody born at my generation, I'm 1959, so it says the 1960s, born after the 1960s, has never lived in a world without the internet. Well, I have a couple of friends who are in their late 70s, and they've never lived in a world without the internet too, so it goes back even a little bit further than that. We make jokes all the time about helping grandma with Zoom Meet or not muting herself, things like that, but many seniors have embraced digital technology. It's a way for them to feel less isolated from their families and socialize too, and also gain information about it. So it really depends on the person themselves, but still, you know, people in their 70s are using this technology. But yours is the generation that's born with the internet. Yours is the generation that has never not known this, and mine has. I remember a time, of course, when a lot of this stuff wasn't available. Just think of encyclopedias. Let's think about the business of encyclopedias. It used to be it was a standard joke, the encyclopedia salesman that would come to your house. So all sorts of funnies were made about that. But at least a few times a year, somebody would come by our house to sell for us to be able to look up facts and figures. And of course, every few years, they'd have to be updated. So you would get updates, thinner editions, thinner books for the next year and the next year and the next year of that A through C part of the encyclopedia set. You could have a whole wall in your house dedicated to an encyclopedia. Good luck finding an encyclopedia outside of the library anymore. People don't use them anymore. We don't need to. We've got the Google machine. We're able to get online with Google. Anyway, so those are digital natives, are what we are, I guess. 3 billion people worldwide are connected to the internet. The 3 billion other people worldwide, and what happens to them will affect you too if you're connected to them. So if that's how you feel, get off. Anyway, 88% of North Americans use the internet. Well, that's quite a large number of people. That's about how many people had televisions in the mid-1960s. And so you can just see that the access to the internet and the affordability of it, the infrastructure of it is starting to improve more and more. More and more people are able to utilize that technology with satellites and all of that other stuff. But it's interesting too that it very much depends regionally for people, like how their service is. Rural areas are notorious for not having good broadband or internet service, in general, satellite service, Wi-Fi. I know that there are parts of Pennsylvania that I go through to go to work when I go through Atlantic or some of the really Amish areas in this region, or we go down into a pit and a gully in a very rural area. We're going to lose the internet. We're going to lose Wi-Fi service. So anyway, more people on Earth have a cell phone than a toilet. So more people have cell phones than toilets. So if you're talking about a rural village, I guess, in Africa somewhere, more people have cell phones than toilets. And it's an amazing communication device, and again, levels the playing field for more people to be able to participate in the economy, in society, all that kind of stuff. So plus. And then 80% of US adults have smartphones. This is as of a couple of years ago when this book was written. I'll bet it's more than that by now. My Aunt Mary Beth is just 3 years older than me, but she's a stickler about social media and wasting her time on it. She just couldn't be bothered. I guess the quarantine has gotten to her because she's finally joined Facebook. This is like a monumental thing. I never thought that she would do that. But I also didn't think she'd end up with a smartphone either, and she did. So more and more people are doing that. Facebook accounts for 6% of all the time in the world's internet users spend online. Wow, that's a pretty significant figure, right? 6% of all the time that people spend online is spent on Facebook. I wonder if that's true for you too. I know that younger people like my granddaughter, or even older young people, college age and stuff, you guys go to different social media platforms, but you still go to Facebook to connect with relatives and things like that, right? Isn't that sort of like the equivalent of the village green, right? Or the town center. And then there are all these cool different clubs for people that might be other social media platforms that you all go to specifically to get away from the rest of us. That's what I would do if I were your age. I'd be like, oh yeah. Chat platform. That's what I would do. Anyway, Facebook accounts, I just said that, didn't I? Twitter users spend a total of 5 million tweets a day. So, no, not 5 million. See how blind? 500 million tweets a day. Twitter users. 500 million tweets a day. Do we say 500 million things a day to each other? I wonder. That's kind of crazy. So privacy in the internet, I'm not going to go deep into that. We just did. I just talked about that, infringements and using personal consumer information and not being transparent about it. Now there are more. How am I going? So they are making more of an effort to make people aware of what's going on with all of that. And then addiction, that was the other thing that we talked about. It says, well, the average American spends 6 hours each day online. That's a lot. Those who suffer from internet addiction, spend 40 to 80 hours per week on the internet. You know, I hope that doesn't matter if you have to do it for your job, because the time I'm spending on the internet right now is not time I might normally be spending on the internet, but just to know that the average of us spends 6 hours a day. Okay, so 8 hours sleeping. That's 14 hours a day if you add 6 to it. Doesn't leave a lot of time for work and socializing, and but you know, that includes gaming and listening to music, maybe streaming, I don't know. But just accessing and using the internet. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're spending 6 hours a day engaged in social media or chat or porn. All right. And many countries treat the internet addiction as a genuine psychiatric problem. Well, I guess that could be true. So is gambling too. I think people can get obsessed and out of balance with so many things, and everything that you get out of balance about has negative consequences. So probably in this country we should look more at people who, you know who they are, can spend days on end in their room with old pizza boxes and empty soda cans while they game, right? They probably need a little help. They probably just do. Research indicates that excessive computer use in is rewiring our brain and is causing a condition known as internet addiction disorder. So your brain becomes accustomed to, you know, the constant checking in. It isn't just the activity that you're doing, it's the electronic interaction with your brain too, through your eyes. Like there's a flickering that goes on, and it causes certain things to be changed and rewired, and affects your pleasure and other kinds of centers in your brain in such a way that you know, you start to just need to be online more and more. So, you know, and the further extension of worry for that is like virtual glasses, or when those Google glasses came out. You know, how much of your brain is it gonna make adaptations to? Remember, we've had to adapt to all the stimulation that we're experiencing in our lives in this time and space in history. But it wasn't like that 200 years ago, or even 60 years ago. It was less like that. More and more our brains have to morph and change for our environment. So that's true. And it's something to think about. You know, your overall health is affected complicatedly and intricately by things that you're not always aware of. And blue screen effect is something I've talked to you guys about. It can interfere with good REM sleep, and that's like the most restorative and important time of your sleep cycle. So, just stuff to think about. Depression, so, definitely can exacerbate that, and it's a distraction as well. It can be. I mean, we're using it right now for constructive, productive reason, but how much time do you think you waste just looking for mindless entertainment or a distraction? You intentionally look for a distraction. Half of the country's 13 to 17-year-old social media users, so true digital natives, find actual human interaction their favorite way to communicate with friends. Okay, let me read through this for a second. Half of those because it's more fun, and a third because it makes understanding easier. So this is a survey of 13 to 17-year-old social media users, and they actually prefer human communication face to face. And I hope you do too. You know, for people who have social anxiety or other kinds of disorders, it's a good way to sort of break out of that and meet people. And social media definitely is important right now in terms of us all keeping in touch with our family and friends when we're isolated. But it's comforting to know that people still would rather, be face to face, because as I said, they think that it makes understanding easier. Well, it does. It's the most effective way for people to communicate with each other and maintain relationships. So your social media and your identity is another thing that the book talks about. Where you go and what you do on the internet says a lot about who you are personally. And so there's a section in there on, the there's a section, I'm sorry, I distracted myself. The PowerPoint is loaded onto Moodle if you want to look a little more deeply into that. But here are types of these SNS users. So you have advanced users who, are really good at doing what they're doing online on social media, and they're good at trolling, creating extra identities, uploading things, bells and whistles, stuff like that. They always seem to get, socializers, people who just want to catch up with others. And then you have lurkers, people who just want to see what other people are up to, but don't necessarily want to talk about what they're up to or have a spotlight shown on them. They don't want the attention paid to them. They just kind of want to see what you're doing. And then the sporadics, people who occasionally check into their social media just to kind of catch up with everybody. And maybe they'll post things once in a while. It's probably going to be my Aunt Mary Beth. The internet and interpersonal communication. Well, anyways, so, this part of it is just saying that all of that identifies uses and gratifications for social media, and, why people, what it is that causes people to want to engage in social media more or less. So, social information processing theory, which is something by Lee and Spears, who are researchers in communication, argues that social cues do indeed exist in computer-mediated communication, but it's often contained in emojis, text symbols, or pictures, or whatever it is you're trying to get across on the internet. So for the rest of this, it isn't really that important that we go into any more of the theater to wrap up this unit and get you guys moving forward. Um, this is a growing field as a profession, developing social network platforms and social networking as a software engineer or even you know, a computer engineer in general. New technologies for this kind of social connection is probably going to be even more important now in these days. Things are going to have to change for us after knowing that are coming together without precautions during a time it not becoming, it is the place where people are 6 hours a day. That's a huge opportunity to get their attention and persuade them. So work in social media for advertising, that's specific, right, for promotions. So there's advertising and e-marketing, but then a sub of that is social media advertising and understanding the nuances of where and when to put out different advertising and promotions for things. And so social media, anything, manager who just keeps up a company's Twitter and Facebook and Instagram accounts and arranges live streams of things and events and promotes events online. Those jobs are pretty hot right now, and I would imagine they're going to grow in the future because we're figuring out a new way to work. This whole situation, I'm not saying that we're not going to go back to congregating in large groups together, but it's definitely shown us that the world can with each other or getting information. Like I said, we use the internet to order pizza. You use that kind of technology to get directions to drive somewhere for your navigation or to even walk somewhere. So more and more, this is a really important field to be thinking about if you're into advertising, promotions, or marketing, any of that kind of thing. And if you're into the software side of it or just, the entrepreneurial side of it, and you can gather together a team of people who know how to do the software part of it, new ideas for social media are coming up left and right, and some of them catch on great, like that crazy TikTok thing, and some of them go like off the end, like MySpace did, and chat rooms did. So, all right, we will not meet on Monday. As I said, you guys are gonna have that day to work on finishing up your stuff. I'm gonna get a Dropbox link for you guys and put it up on the Moodle assignment link. I will also email it to you so you'll have it both ways. And once you click on it, it'll ask you to make an account if you don't have one, and it's easy to do. It takes a couple of minutes and it's free. So that's that. Does anybody have any questions before we break up? Okay, well, Reggie says hi. Actually, he doesn't. He's just sleeping on his bed, but we'll pretend that he said hi. And I hope everybody is doing well and taking care of yourself and each other. And I will see you on Wednesday of next week. In the meantime, I'll email you about the Dropbox. And if you haven't gotten your outline done, TikTok, get it done. All right. Have a good rest of your day.